Okay, ETM Hotep, I want to welcome everyone to this live, Facebook Live with your brother Wujao, Rini Wujao Meneb Erimaat. My name is Wujao Meneb Erimaat, and simply Wujao. And I'm here with Sonnet Emykhet Akhu Kinshaye, and tonight we will demonstrate, actually Sonnet Emykhet will demonstrate an example of how to transliterate and translate ancient Egyptian hieroglyphic that we refer or prefer to refer to as Sesh Medew Netcher. All right, Sesh Medew Netcher is the indigenous name of the writing system that is more popularly called hieroglyphic or Egyptian hieroglyphic. All right, so we always want to encourage people to use the indigenous terms that were used by the actual people of the Nile Valley. All right, so we are going to go through a demonstration, but prior to going through that, I want to just explain the steps on transliterations and translation. There are four steps to this process, and they're immutable, meaning that everyone follows these four steps. Anyone who deviates or neglects to follow the four steps, they're not transliterating or translating. All right, so and I do understand that there are attempts made by various different people to decipher, interpret, translate the Egyptian hieroglyphs and things like that. But you have to be careful, because there are a lot of people out there that have not learned how to do so, have not studied, whether it's on their own or by way of a teacher, on how to transliterate and translate. And so we've come across quite a few instances where people will make attempts and they haven't gone through the study themselves. And it's unfortunate, because there are people who are sincerely interested in learning, and they want to know how to translate. They want to be able to read the inscriptions and so on and so forth. And they're looking for this information and these instructions. But yet you have a few people that are making attempts to teach and do things without they themselves going through the process of learning. And so we do our best just to let that be known and just show and demonstrate to people how it's actually done. All right, so this is what we're going to do for tonight. So the four steps to the process is four steps. Step one, and by the way, if you all have been following our YouTube page, Sesh Medew Netcher, or following anything that I've done on Facebook Live in regards to the language, you'll already be familiar. So this is a reminder to those who are already familiar, and then maybe this will benefit those who may not know. But there's four steps to transliterating and translating. But first, before I explain the four steps, let me explain what transliteration is and what translation is, and the difference briefly. So transliteration is an orthographic endeavor, which means that it deals with scripts. So when you transliterate, what you're doing is you're taking a source script and you're transferring it over into a target script. So for example, Mandarin Chinese is written in the Chinese writing system, the script. And so if you want to bring it over into the same script that we use for English, you would have to transliterate those characters into the target script, which would be the Latin script that we use for English. All right. With translation is a semantic endeavor, which means that you're transferring meaning. And so you're taking a source meaning from a source language, and you're bringing it over into a target language. And with translations, there is a a science, or there's an art and a skill to translations, because rarely will you find an exact one-for-one equivalency when you're moving from one language over into another in terms of meaning. And then there is an issue of grammar of the target language and the source language. In other words, the grammar of the source language may differ from the grammar of the target language. So you have to be knowledgeable, proficient, and competent in both languages in order to know how to make those adjustments. Okay? So for example, if you dive into a pool of water, you're not going to breathe underwater. You're going to make the necessary adjustments and you're going to hold your breath. So in other words, when you take a meaning from a source language and bring it over into a target language, you have to make those adjustments in order for it to make sense in the target language. So that's what translation is all about. And that's what the science, skill, and art of translation. Transliteration, it doesn't speak to the meaning or even the pronunciations. Now, what can be somewhat confusing is the difference between transliteration and transcribing, because transcribing will speak to the pronunciations. Transliterations technically does not, but a lot of transliteration systems will try to also be true to the pronunciations as well. And so that's where, it may become a little bit confusing, but it's actually not. If people will, take what I just said, and it's, as far as trying to simplify it and just look at it that way. Transliteration, orthographic endeavor, dealing with the script. Transcription would be moving for pronunciations, trying to stay pronunciation. You're trying to represent pronunciation from one source to a target. And then translation would be the movement of meaning from a source language to a target language. And translations involves two or more languages. All right, so just remember all of that. That's just to form the basis of what those are. All right, so now back to the 4 steps. So in order to transliterate and translate Sesh Medew Netcher, there are 4 steps that must be taken. The first step is to identify the direction in which to read the signs or glyphs. And the reason why that is because unlike English, in English, we write in one direction, left to right. That's it. And only maybe in advertisements, advertisements will get creative where we'll have, writing in circles and logos and things of that nature. Otherwise, it's one direction, left to right. But with Sesh Medew Netcher, there are 4 possible directions, which are really 2. And I'll explain why. Either the glyphs are written in columns or they're written in rows. And either in columns or rows, they are read left to right or right to left. And it depends which direction that you're going to read them based on the way the glyphs are facing. So step 1 is to figure out which direction the glyphs are to be read for a particular inscription that you are making an attempt to translate. That's step 1. Step 2 is to identify each individual glyph. In other words, you have to know what each individual glyph is and the possible ways it can function in any given word. Now, normally we would use a glyph list or sign list in order to identify the glyphs that we are not familiar with. There are thousands of glyphs. In the Old and up to the Middle Kingdom, there were only approximately 750 to 1,000 glyphs that were in use. That number grew exponentially by the time you get to the Ptolemaic or the Greco-Roman era in ancient Kemet. And it grew up to about 7,000 glyphs. So it went from 750, approximately 1,000, to 7,000. And so you can imagine trying to memorize all of those glyphs. So it becomes necessary to use glyph lists. So step 2, this is the step that you would normally use glyph list for. All right, sign list. Step 3 would be to identify the words that those glyphs are create or make up. And the reason for step 3 is because unlike English, Sesh Medew Netcher has no punctuation. In English, we have spaces that separate one word from another. In Sesh Medew Netcher, there's no such thing. So you have to know where one word ends and another one begins. And so we refer to step 3 as a parsing step, where you parse the glyphs and separate them into the words that they compose. And there are different things that help us make that determination. And one are determinatives, which are glyphs that help determine the meaning of words. Now, the reason why they can help us parse one word from another is because determinatives are usually found at the end of a word. Okay, so these are glyphs that help us determine the meaning of the word. They're not pronounced and they're not transliterated. So they're only there in the writing system. So they're orthographic aids. They're not speech aids because they're not spoken. They're not pronounced. All right. So that will be step 3. And also step 3, once you parse the words and separate them, you have to know what the words mean. And so any words that you already don't have memorized or are familiar with its meaning, you would need a vocabulary list or a dictionary. The same way with English. Although most of us may have grown up speaking English all of our lives, we still have to use dictionaries because we don't know the meaning of every single English word. All right? You could be speaking English for 40 years, 30 years, 50 years. You will still have to use a dictionary from time to time. So this is no different. In Rodney Kemet, which is the indigenous name of the spoken language of ancient Kemet, there are words that you're not going to be familiar with or have committed to memory. So therefore, step 3, you would have to utilize a dictionary. Step 4, and the final step, is to walk away with a sensible translation, which means that we refer to step 4 as a grammar step, meaning that you will have to make sure it makes sense in the target language. In our case, that will be English. So we're moving from Rodney Kemet, which is the spoken language of ancient Kemet, over into English, and you have to make it make sense in English. And you have to apply and make the adjustments to any grammatical rules. All right. So that's just a quick summary of those 4 steps. So now for a demonstration of those 4 steps, and I'm going to pass the mic over to Sonnet Emykhet.
All right, Dua. So Reni Emykhet. My name is Emykhet. And so what we're going to do today is just what Sebawujawa has gone through. We're going to just demonstrate it with using an artifact. And I believe, let's see what artifact that you have that we're going to be working on today.
Okay. And hopefully everyone can see that on the screen big enough to follow along, but okay.
Okay. So if you remember the 4 steps, if you remember the first one was to determine the direction in which the signs are to be read. And Sebawujawa said that there are 4 directions, but he said pretty much 2 in general. And in that sense, it will be we're either reading from left to right or we're reading from right to left. And how we know this to figure out what direction would be to look at the glyphs of animate. We're looking at animate glyphs such as, body parts, animals, and birds, and all of that. Those will help us determine what direction. And what we look at what direction those glyphs are facing, and that will be the direction in which we'll be reading. So we'll be reading into the signs. So in this case, when you look at the glyph, the artifact that you have on the screen, I can see that there's the first body part that I see is a front part of a lion, and that's inside the Shanu. And I see that the lion is actually facing right. And then I see a seated person right underneath it, and that person is also facing right. And right at the bottom also I see there's a cobra, and that is also facing right. So now we know that we're going to be reading from right. Now, when reading from right or when reading from left, we can either read it, horizontally or vertically, and that will be determined by how the signs are written. In this case, we can see that the signs are written in columns. So we're going to be reading from top to bottom. So we're going to be reading vertically. So it'll be vertical, right to left. So that's the first step. So now that we have that figured out, then we go to the second step. And on the second step, we're going to identify and document each glyphs. And when you're beginning, you'll have to do this for each and every glyph. But the better you get, the more proficient you get, you'll probably have to just look at what glyphs you might not identify, you might not know or haven't memorized. And those are the ones that you'll be trying to figure out. But just to go over some of the glyphs and bypassing the monoliterals, because that everybody should be kind of familiar with that, I can identify probably 3 different glyphs that we see in this particular artifact. And the first one that we see is a standard pole, and the one that the cursor is on. And then inside the Shanu, I can see we have a game board, and then at the bottom we have something that everybody's familiar with, and that would be the sandal strap that everybody knows as the ankh. Yeah, right over there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just for clarification, when you say the standard pole, you said the game board, and you said the sandal strap, is that all that a person needs to know?
Oh no. Nah, I'm just going through that. But I could go through the different all of them. You will have to know all the glyphs that are in the artifact to be able to to translate it.
Okay, no, I didn't mean there's all the glyphs. I'm saying for the particular ones that you pointed out, is that all the information that they need for those particular glyphs?
I get you. No. So, for example, the standard pole, we know it's a standard pole, but we need to know how it functions in this particular inscription, and in this sense, then the standard pole actually functions as a triliteral, and the triliteral is one of the phonograms. Signs. We know that the glyphs can either function as in 3 different ways, and they can function as phonograms. Or they can function as logograms, or they can function as determinatives. And when they function as phonograms, they're used to spell out the words, but or they're used for the sounds. And in this case, the phonograms can either be monoliterals, which are like the pseudo alphabet, and we know those are the ones that you kind of have to be familiar with, or the biliterals. The monoliterals have 1 consonant, and that's why they're called mono. Some people call them unilaterals. And then we have the biliterals, and these have 2 consonant sounds. And then you have the triliterals, and these have 3 consonant sound. And this sound, this particular glyph we have the standard pole, functions as a triliteral with 3 consonant sounds, which will be the N, the uppercase T, which has the sound ch, and then the R. So that's what is known as the netcher. That's netcher. And then the other glyph, the second glyph that I mentioned, which was the game board, that functions as a biliteral. It has 2 consonant sounds, and that would be the M and the N, known as the men. And the last one that I mentioned, which was the sandal strap, that is what everybody knows as the Ankh. It has 3 consonant sounds, which is A, N, and X or sound, and that is known as Ankh, and that's a triliteral as well. And these are the kind of stuff that you will be writing down, how they'll be functioning. And then once you have completed that second step, then you want to move on into the third step. And in the third step, we do what you'll be parsing, which you'll be grouping the glyphs into words. And then once you have grouped them into words, then you're going to look them up in a dictionary. So some of the signs, like the first sign that we have, and I could go through each step by step. So the first sign, the first word that I would recognize will be then just Netcher, and that will be just one glyph, and that's the first one. And then the second word that I recognize would be Hemet, and that would be the next 2 signs, the next 2 glyphs. And you have the top one is a triliteral, is a biliteral, and then it has the T ending on it. And then we have the glyphs that are in the Shenu, and the Shenu is the ring, or what some people know as the cartouche. And so inside that, this the other word that I would recognize, that I actually do recognize, will be Emen, and that would be the reed leaf, the first sign, the second sign, and the third sign in the cartouche. Yes, the one that is a circle, is squared. So that would be the reed leaf for the word I or E sound, and then men, which will be the game board, and then you have the water ripple underneath it, which functions as a phonetic complement. And phonetic complements are usually monoliteral signs or unilateral signs that are used to spell out mostly biliterals. And then the next sign that we see would be what is that? Could you zoom in a little closer? Oh, I could go on the Facebook page and see it properly. So that would be Henemet, and that would be the next sign on your right, and with the and the raised bread loaf. And then after that, the next word will be hat, and that will be the next 2 glyphs, which will be the lion, the front part of the lion, and the raised bread loaf. And then the last word will be the seated person, and there's a tiny little raised bread loaf on it as well. So in that in the Shenu, is a name, and the name will be Henemet Hat Shepsut. No, Henemet Emen Hat Shepsut. And actually, mostly when reading names in the Shenu, you'll find that you find a lot of what is known as honorific transposition going on. And in this case, this is where you see the name Emen that is actually written first, but when we read it, it comes after. And this you find with names of deities and names of kings and such. So, and even like the word like Medew Netcher, we see that a lot. That has honorific transposition going on, where you have the Netcher written first, and then you have the walking stick that comes after, but we say Medew first. And then so we go down, and then the next word would just be the Ankh on its own. And I don't know if you want to put a cursor on that so that people can see that. So we have Ankh. Actually, we have Ankh T. So that would be that Ankh and the next glyph. Yes. So that would be Ankh T. And then the next word we have is me, which will be the next two glyphs underneath it. And that would be the milk jug. And that's actually a phrase. So there will have me, and then you have the next word, which will be Ra. And that would be the milk jug and the sun. And then the last word will be jet, and that will be the last three glyphs. So I'll just go ahead and okay, so that's the third step. I hope everybody's following. So that's the third step. So so now we have those words, and then you look them up in the dictionary, and then once you find out what the words mean, then you come up with a sensible translation. But what I'm going to do is I'll just quickly go over, just read from top to bottom the transliteration, and that will be Emykhet Netcher, which will be the top signs, and then in the Shanu we have the name Emykhet. Okay, yeah, then that would be Emykhet Netcher, and then in the Shanu we have Emykhet Iman Hat Shepsut, and then we have Ankti Mi Ra Jet. And what this will mean will be God's wife, or what some people would also translate as high priestess. And then inside the Shinu we have the name of Hatshepsut, and that will actually be if we had to literally translate the name, that would be joined with Amun, which would be Kenumit Iman, which is joined, and then with Iman, and then Hatshepsut, which would be foremost of the noble ladies. That would be the name of Hatshepsut. And then after that we have Ankti, which may she live, and then Mira, like Ra, and then Jet, forever. So so just to say, it would be God's wife, Hatshepsut, may she live forever. May she live like Ra forever. That would be the translation. So that would be the whole process. And I hope everybody followed. If there was something that I kind of missed, or you have any question, just please write it down in the chat, and I'll be happy to answer.
Okay, excellent. So hopefully those who are watching are able to follow along. And if you had, like Emykhet said, if you had any questions, we will look at the chat for a little while and answer any questions right now. And if not, if you're watching this after we're concluded our live stream, then feel free to also type a comment or question, and we'll, we monitor that as well. So just wanted to go over that. So that was excellent. So that was a demonstration of the process of transliterating and translating Sesh Medew Netcher. And so what we refer to it as is the Tep Hesep of translation. And the phrase Tep Hesep means the correct method. All right. This is a, like I said in the beginning, an immutable process that must be taken by everyone. Everyone does this to translate properly. All right. And there's no getting around the process. So that was excellent. And this is a brief inscription. And let me zoom out a little bit just to kind of show what this object actually is. And I think you can see the whole picture now. And so this is an artifact that actually was either in the possession or belonged to King Hatshepsut. All right. And notice I said King Hatshepsut and not Queen Hatshepsut. And that's another thing that people should become more familiar with the fact that women can be kings, and we don't have to say queen for women, because the word, as a matter of fact, let me show you all this picture. Now remember this phrase here. The first phrase that's up here, as Emykhet said, this would be Emykhet Netcher, and it's translated as God's wife or high priestess. But remember how this looks. We have three glyphs. We have the standard, which stands for Netcher, and then we have the water, and then we have a raised bread loaf. So we have Emykhet Netcher, and this is written in honorific transposition, where we have the deity, the word for deity, or deity's names, or the word for king itself would be transposed in front out of honor. So we refer to that as honorific transposition. But remember how this looks, and I'm going to share something else that's very, very similar here. Now, unfortunately, my cursor is not on for this particular picture, but what I want to bring to your attention is in column number 1, if you look at the 4th glyph, 5th, and 6th glyph, the first 3 glyphs, the first glyph is an eye, the second glyph is a high throne, a high-backed throne, the third glyph is a seated deity with a curved beard. So what I want to point to are the glyphs after that. So if you notice, we have the same or very similar to what we just looked at. But this particular phrase is Emykhet Nasut. The other one we just looked at was Emykhet Netcher. This one is Emykhet Nasut. This word means wife of king, or royal wife, or simply queen. So this will be the word for queen, Emykhet Nasut. And if I go back to our artifact, and we can see the word is very similar, Emykhet Netcher. So the only difference is that we have the Netcher standard, and for the Emykhet Nasut, that will be replaced for a sedge plant, standing in for the word Nasut. Okay, so Emykhet Nasut will be king's wife. So in this instance, Emykhet Netcher will be God's wife. Okay, so I just wanted to show you all that. But other than that, the 4 steps, hopefully that was clearly demonstrated and everyone followed along. And I just want to reiterate that when you're doing this process, keep those 4 steps in mind. There's no shortcuts around it. The shortcut is not to avoid any of the 4 steps. The shortcut to those 4 steps would be, through time, you would memorize more and more words and their meanings, and you would memorize more and more glyphs and what they represent. That would be the shortcut. So as Sanat Emykhet said, when she pointed out step 2, some of the glyphs, she avoided what's called the monoliterals. And again, mono meaning one. These are glyphs that represent one consonant. So we have a raised bread loaf here, raised bread loaf here, another one here, and another one here, and even one at the bottom. So these are monoliterals, and the reason why these are, the reason why Emykhet skipped over those is because by the time that you sit down and make attempts to transliterate or translate anything, these are the glyphs that you should already have committed to memory. It's a must, and you have to do it. Without doing it, you will not get very far in this process at all. And there are only 24 of those glyphs, monoliterals, and they would be referred to as a pseudo alphabet because they represent single consonants that represent all of the sounds within the language, with the exception, of course, of the vowels. The vowels were not documented in the writing system. So these 24 signs represent the consonantal sounds of the language. I say 24. There is a 25th, which is really a double reed leaf. So it's the reed leaf twice that represents a separate consonant, but because it's the same glyph, just duplicated, it keeps the number at 24 different particular glyphs. Okay, so those 24 have to be committed to memory. All right, it's very important. It's imperative. All right, so but that's it. I don't know if anybody had any questions. Did you see any questions? Let's see. Let me scroll up.
Okay, now I didn't check it, and while you scroll up, I was just saying that I wanted to just add that it's good to one of the good things about knowing how to translate Sesh or read Sesh Medew Netcher is in such instances when you find artifacts like this, it's always good to know who the artifact belonged to. So we probably will be looking at this and we won't know anything about this, but after going through the whole process, then we know that this particular object belonged to so and so, and in such a case, it belonged to Hatshepsut.
Okay, excellent. What is the artifact? Are you familiar with what it is or anything like that? Could you tell us anything about it?
It is. It's a coal jar, and this is if you know what a coal is the black stuff that people use as eye makeup.
Okay.
To do under the eyes, and we know that Egyptians had that a lot. I read somewhere actually that it kind of helped with the dust that was very prevalent in the area. So it would kind of like dust will stick to that, to those makeup spots or whatever. But yeah, so that's what it is. It's coal jar for that.
Okay. All right. Excellent. So in other words, I'm not sure if you're familiar with American football, because I know outside of America, soccer is called football. But
Right.
American football players put a black, they put a black strip of paint or something under their eyes or near their eyes. Are you familiar with that?
Too.
Okay, so yeah, so it and I believe it's done to reduce the glare of the sun and different things like that. So I wonder if that was
Interesting.
one of the same purposes or similar purposes, that have the same or similar purpose as coal back in ancient times. That would be interesting. Okay, so I'm scrolling through. I don't see any questions. I want to say again, I appreciate anyone who's tuned in, and hopefully you all are following along. I mean, we've done this enough on our YouTube channel. We do it every Friday, or we've done it every Friday. We've just started that back up. We call it Freestyle Fridays, as well as Divine Words Wednesdays. So we'll have a YouTube show tomorrow at 9 p.m. where we'll do a bit of the same. We usually give presentations on Wednesdays, and then Fridays we give freestyles. We do freestyling. So if you've been following for any amount of time, you should already have these steps committed to memory. It's just the fact that you may, put into practice, learn. And of course, you can always take a course. We have a beginner's course that's available at any time on the website. As a matter of fact, I think I should share the website and everything. But the course is available anytime. It's technically the course is only 24 hours. But we're not going to study 24 hours straight. So we break it up into 2 hours per session, 2-hour sessions, which stretches it out to 12 weeks. So it's a 12-week course. Everything you need to know. By the time you finish the course, you will be able to do what Sonnet Emykhet just demonstrated. All right, that's guaranteed. On simple inscriptions, such as the one that we see here, the one I showed a second ago, and those kinds of inscriptions, you will have no problem once you go through the course, and obviously if you apply the information. All right, you'll be given all the necessary tools, and okay, so you have to put it to use and put it to practice. But it's a guarantee that you'll be able to do what Sonnet Emykhet just did. All right, 12 weeks is all it takes. 24 hours. Remember that. So let's see. Oh, and by the way, the course is available at sableuniversity.com. Matter of fact, let me see if I can pull up the sites here. But in Emykhet, I'm not sure if you can see the comments, but if you can check to see if there's any questions or comments that we should address.
Yeah, I saw one of Sinek. This it wasn't a question, but she was saying so it's a lady's name, and yeah, it would be a lady's name, and you would know this because you would see just on the first glyph where you see Emykhet Netcher, that would let you know right away. And also you see inside the Shinu, let's say you didn't know who the person is, or if it's a Hatshepsut, who Hatshepsut is, you would know this by the ending. And I'm sure that Sipo Zhao can elaborate with that that's part of the grammar stuff. But you will see the T ending, let's say in Shepeset, you see in Chenemut and all that stuff, then and on the other sections, and you would know that yes, you're dealing with a lady, a lady's name.
Okay, just to briefly add to what you just said, in Rodney Kemet, unlike English, we have gender. And so words are marked for gender, I should say, in Rodney Kemet and in the writing system, Sesh Medew Netcher. So the gender is marked by a raised bread loaf. And some people, very few people, mistake that raised bread loaf as the setting sun. Okay, so let's correct that. So anyone that you see that's calling this a raised bread loaf the setting sun, please inform them that it's a raised bread loaf. And it stands for the consonant T, which is the first letter in what the name of bread is in the language, which is te. We usually spell it out as te, te, or t. And so that's what bread is. And so this is a raised bread loaf. All right. It has a rounded top, and it looks like it could be the sun setting on the horizon. But why setting? Why not rising? So, but it's not a sun at all. There is a glyph that represents the sun that is coming or going from the horizon. And that is the glyph that represents the word ka'u, or ka, which means to appear. Why? Because the sun is appearing. All right. So you see the sun rays.
Yeah, and you can find that it has a Gardner code of N28. And I guess some people do mistake it for the raised bread loaf because in some parts, when scribes will carve, then it would kind of look like the raised bread loaf, and probably that's why. But it is not. The raised bread loaf is not the setting sun.
All right. So, all right. And let me share. So remember, I mentioned the course, and I recommend anyone who's interested in Kemet, please take a beginner's course. If not with me or with any of the teachers that will be involved with the beginner's course, or even in the grammar course. If it's not with me or any of us, take a course or learn on your own, but in a very systematic way. Okay? Because a lot of people may be autodidacts. You may want to teach yourself and things of that nature, and that's fine. But make sure you do so in a very controlled or systematic way. All right, a proper way. But if you're gonna deal with Kemet and you're interested in the culture and all of the things that we hear and know and love Kemet for, learn the basics of the language at the very least, because otherwise you're going to be completely handicapped. All right, and you'll find it'll be so much more beneficial if you know at least the basics about the language. And there's a very simple reason why. Kemet is a very, we'll put it this way, Kemet documented everything. Everyone knows this. And so when we say let the ancestors speak, or we want to know how or why Kemet, the people of Kemet did what they did, why they did what they did, and everything, they wrote it down. They documented. The scribes documented everything. And it survived. We have a lot of documentation, artifacts and so on. There's a lot that's been destroyed, but a lot that's survived. And so what other way to find out what they did and why they did what they did outside of going to them and letting them speak for themselves? Like today, we call that going to the horse's mouth. We don't want to hear he say, she say, this person says something that another person said, who another person said, and so on and so forth. Let's go straight to the source. Let's go straight to the horse's mouth. And so we could simply learn the language and then read the documentation ourselves. Also, this puts us in a less dependency state to rely on people who may have done it before us. We can actually check out and fact check or double check, triple check. We can either refute or confirm the work that has been done before us in terms of ancient Kemet. So in other words, all of the Egyptological books that are out there, by us learning the language ourselves, then we can review that work, and we don't have to be totally dependent on that work. Anything that is out of place, odd, and whatnot, we can fact check it. We can check it. We have the tools now. We have historical comparative linguistics. If we doubt the dictionaries, we don't have to rely on the dictionaries. All right, we're not dependent on the dictionaries. There's a lot of work that was put into all of the dictionaries, and we don't have to throw them away. But we don't have to depend on them, solely depend on them. Where we exist in a total dependency, those days are over. And so what we need to do is more people that are dealing with Kemet learn the basics of the language. That way we can set ourselves up to be even more directly involved with what the ancient Remich or ancient Egyptians say themselves, and why they, what they did, why they did what they did, and how they did what they did. And then we can look at all of that and see if any of that is useful for us today. Okay, so these are, it's many benefits of learning the language. So we have a class, like I said, 12 weeks. You can actually learn on your own pace, but the average pace is 12 weeks. And so you can find it on saberuniversity.com. And so you see the homepage on the screen now. You should see it on the screen now. And so now Seba University is, the word Seba means instructions or teacher or student. Everything that deals with learning, discipline, instructions, teaching, education, and so on and so forth. So Seba University is the University of Instruction. So it's an online environment where you can be properly instructed in many different things. It's not limited to just Egyptian language or Egypt at all. It's multifaceted. It's website that's going to grow with more content, more courses on different things. Simple things as in information about, well, not simple, but information about DNA, biology, evolution, even how-tos, like how to, somebody can put together a tutorial on how to change your car brakes, or whatever the case is. Things that we need in our communities. So we have, academic material and subject matter, but then, how to, some more practical things that if people can develop and put as content on the website. So I say all of that to say that Saber University is that kind of environment that's going to house many different types of information. It's in its very infancy stage right now. But this is where the course is for the language that I just mentioned. So I want to point that out. And you can sign up anytime. The course, matter of fact, I'll just click on it. so that you can see. Beginner's Introduction to Egyptian Hieroglyphic. As you can see, the course is only $100 and you can sign up at any time. The only requirements is that you have to have the textbook that you see on the screen. That's it. Requirement is a textbook, your interest, and your time. That's it. Easy. Okay. Another website is our the home of the Sesh Medew Netcher, which is the website seshmedew-ntr.com. All right. And on this website, we have aspirations for this website to be like a one-stop shop, like the Walmart of information about Kemet. So on this website, we have transliterations, translations, articles, explaining different things. We have articles that are refuting some of the misinformation out there about Kemet. We have resources that you could download. We have 2 memberships, a free membership to the website and then a premium membership that will give you access to our digital library, which is what we refer to. Let me click on it. We refer to it as Penmanship. And it's a digital library, so you have resources that you could download. Okay, so in a nutshell, this website is one-stop shop for all things Kemet, and it's going to grow more content, more and more content. So be sure to support, and you can sign up for the free membership so you can receive, any updates and email correspondence and things like that. All right, but it's also the home of the Sesh Medew Netcher, and you can find out all about the group on this site and this particular page. As you can see, home of the Sesh Medew Netcher, loyal scribes of divine words. Who are we, or who we are? A breakdown of the name Sesh Medew Netcher, where it was inspired from, and the fact that we are a open group that is open for membership. We also explained a little bit about how to become a member. Okay, and then you'll see some of the student translation pieces. So, for example, this one here that we just went over, this was done by Sonnet Emykhet. And so on the website, you see that there's a brief article showing the artifact itself and the transliteration, the Egyptological spelling and pronunciation, and then the translation. Okay, so check out the website and, be sure to register and sign up for it. All right. So I guess that's it. Oh, I can't leave out here. I can't leave out our publications. We have 3 so far. A 4th one is on its way, which would be the grammar book. But on the left is the textbook that I mentioned that complements the course. The middle is the latest book written by Emykhet Akhu Kinshaye. It is a simple. Well, I'll let you explain it. I'm always explaining it, but we have you here, so you give us a brief synopsis of the book, the middle book.
Okay. Yeah. Dua. So the book that you see in the middle, that's the book that focuses on penmanship. And since we are aspiring scribes write. So one of the skills that we aspire to have is to be able to not just read, but to write Sesh Medew Netcher. So this is an introduction to writing Sesh Medew Netcher, and in this case, we picked the simplified Sesh Medew Netcher, and this is the type of writing that you find in what is known as the Book of the Dead, that most people know as the Book of the Dead. It's a more simplified rendition of what you see on the monuments, those more elaborate scripts. And this was chosen because because it's easier. There's less strokes that the scribes of in ancient Kemet invented. Is a really genius. Simplify. You get to write faster, and the first book is a series, and this is volume 1. And the first book focuses on the monoliterals, what we talked about as a pseudo alphabet. And because pretty much you could use the monoliterals to write any word in Sesh Medew Netcher. It wasn't used as such, but you could definitely use it as that. So that was the perfect introduction into the art of scribing. So it focuses on the monoliterals. It shows you how to write them. The first section of the book goes over just basic stuff about hieroglyphs and writing system. And then the second section of the book breaks down the art of writing and the art of drawing, because we know that Sesh Medew Netcher are actually pictograms. So when you enter into scribing, you're definitely going to enter into the world of what we know as drawing. But just to simplify, because most people are not artists, the second section just breaks down and simplifies, how to be able to draw, to draw, even if you're not an artist, and the basic techniques that you need, and the tools that break down the tools that we use. And in this case, we're using the fountain pen and the ink, and all that is broken down, and some of the things that techniques that you'll have to learn to be able to do that fluently and effectively. Then the third section of the book breaks down each and every monoliteral. So everything is broken down in a way that you can't go wrong. So the strokes are elaborated. Yes, that's the book that you see on the screen. If you can open maybe a page with on the top. So.
Excuse me, a page with what?
A page of one of the monoliterals.
Okay, so here in the beginning, I'm not sure if it's mirrored on Facebook or if you can see it properly.
It looks fine on my section. I think it should look fine on Facebook as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So see what you see. So is see, like the first when you look at that drawing, the first part is showing you the direction in which you're going to be drawing. So
let me go
so that you don't get lost. You don't know.
Let me go to the actual first glyph that you have here. So here's the actual first page of the first glyph. So you show the actual formal glyph, which is you have the Gardner code there. Oh, go ahead. I'm up here. I'm trying to show it at the same time.
Now you're doing a good job. So you see the formal glyph, and and then a few details about it, the most important details that you need to know.
Yeah.
And then on the next page, now you see the simplified version of it, in this case the vulture, and so it tells you the shape of the sign, and that you will get to know when you read the book. Then it shows you the direction when you start to draw. You see that it's drawn within a grid, so that you have your proportions correctly, so you don't go around drawing things that are squeezed or too wide or whatever. So you have the directions, and then it shows you the top part that is colored, shows you the different strokes, and in this case we have two strokes, so you cannot get to write this really quickly. So so everything is elaborated. So trust me, if you haven't drawn anything, if you haven't written anything, it should not be a problem, going through that. So I would like to go ahead.
Oh no, sorry. Here is why people feel that the raised bread loaf looks like a setting sun. But this is the glyph here, and it shows you how to draw it in the grid. I'm having a problem with this. My right is the left. It's like trying to move this in a mirror right now. But that was I just wanted to show the raised bread loaf.
All right, and the thing is, one of the other reason why it came up with the book is because when you see when people get into writing Sesh Medew Netcher, you might see somebody taking a lot of time trying to draw things perfectly, making it so elaborate. And it's just to make people know that scribes had a, when it comes to not carving, that was done differently. But oh, what you got there?
No, no, you keep talking. I'm
Okay,
just
yeah.
sharing.
So
I'm just sharing
so
some pages.
oh, okay, okay. So so when you're writing, a scribe will not spend so much time trying to write, and it won't be effective. It won't be productive taking so much time trying to draw stuff. Like by the time you draw one glyph and you have to write a whole inscription, that is not effective. That is not realistic. So it was very important that we get to learn to write, to find a way to write faster, especially when we're not taking and all of that stuff, and do it like it was in a more authentic way, like it was done in ancient Kemet, where they had particular scripts for the quick, for the the day-to-day stuff, for writing tax records and all that kind of stuff. So that was very important, and that's why that was one of the things that inspired me to kind of go to come up with the book. And then and the other thing is that once you get the techniques that are in the book, there's a lot of stuff that is not just drawing but just going over the techniques. Once you learn to get to know once you've learned and mastered the techniques, drawing or scribing the other glyphs will not actually come really, really, really easy. So you will just use that particular technique or method to describe the other glyphs, and we will go over those in the other series.
Okay, so oh, let me put it back on and explain the third book. But excellent. Hopefully, anyone who's watching, shame on you if you do not have that book or any of these books. These books are valuable tools. All right, if you want to know about different aspects of Kemet, the language at least, these books are must-haves. The third book on the right is has the Egyptian hieroglyphic writing system been deciphered? A rebuttal to Walter Williams. That answered the question about 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, where it was being stirred up about the claim that the hieroglyphic writing system has not been deciphered. So we decided to write a book to refute each and every point made by Professor Walter Williams, who is the scholar who basically championed that claim in the late 90s on up till today. And so people, jumped on board with that claim. And about a year and a half ago, it started growing legs. So we figured we need to address it. And so we did. And in that particular book, even though we addressed the claims point for point in part 2 of the book, part 1 gives you all of the necessary information on how the writing system works, because you're going to have to know that in order to know whether it's true or not if it's been deciphered. So we go through and explain everything. Everything is in details there. So don't sleep on that book. That book will teach you how the writing system works, and it will answer your questions. It will. As a matter of fact, since I'm showing books, let me see. Since I'm showing books, let's do this real quick. For those who, that's this one here. And let me see if I can flip through and just show you an example of. Okay, so like for example, we explain what a writing system is. So we answer questions. So basically, it's written answering these questions. So for example, we have, I'm not sure you can see, what is a writing system? And then we break down what a writing system is. And then on the other page, you see how the written communication process, how you have a writer who encodes what is spoken into a writing system, and then the receiver or reader of what was encoded will have to decode what was encoded and put it back into the spoken form in order to read. We explain what is decipherment. So we answer the questions, the difference between decipherment, translation, pronunciation, transliteration, transcribing, decrypting. All of those things are different. And so we outline all of that. We explain how the glyphs work, what are determinatives. We break everything down point for point. Okay. So, our goal was to make it simple enough where everybody can follow it, but also don't compromise the information. So we wanted to make a good balance between the technical aspects of the writing system as well as, making it easy to understand. Okay. So for anybody who already has the book, we always look for feedback. All right. And what we're going to do, we're going to create a free course, not a course. I shouldn't say a course, but we're going to create a free quiz, test and quizzes about this book. So you can actually evaluate yourself on whether you understood what we wrote. Okay, so this is going to be available on Sable University. So we're going to create, quizzes for each of these points that are made in the book to make sure you understand and make sure you comprehend and grasp everything that was mentioned in there. Okay, so were there any questions? Because, we kind of went off on our commercial there.
No, I didn't see any question, but I just wanted to add that for those, if you haven't taken the classes, I would highly recommend that if you're going to get the books, get all the books, because, for example, the decipherment book, that's a great pre-basic, if you would call it. It's like, just getting to know how writing system works. It will help you a lot once you get into the classes, into the beginners class, because a lot of people just have it so wrong when that basic foundation is not set up correctly. You see a lot of people making errors that are just detrimental and that they shouldn't even be making. So I would highly recommend that you get that book and then get into the beginners class, because that's a really good stepping stone into learning Sesh Medew Netcher. Just understanding writing systems and understanding decipherment is very vital.
Okay, excellent. So I guess with that said, let me just double check the comments. All right. So we have and again, ETM Hotep, peace to the family who are watching live. Really appreciate it, because people, everyone could be doing any number of things. Give a shout out to everyone. Let's see. Just to see if there's any comments. Well, I see comments. Appreciate the comments. Let's see. Sonat Lisa says she can be a king. That was true. That's talking about Hatshepsut. All right. Let's see. Scrolling down.
Oh, I see one question. I think it was from MC Chill, Kevin MC Chill.
Okay.
He said, okay, the F4 is hot and A40BW raised bread loaf is suit. What makes up the shape? Oh, okay. I think he was talking about the glyphs in Shinu.
All right. Let me zoom in. I believe he's speaking about within the Shinu. He said F4, which is the front parts of a lion. And then the seated person. What was the question again?
What makes up the shape? You said the F4 is hut.
Yes.
And F40BW raised bread loaf is suit. What makes up the shape? I think it's there's the hut, which is the lion, and then you have with the raised bread loaf, and then that would not be F40. I think it would be A50, which would be shepherds, which would be noble, to represent the noble, if that's the question, which would be shepherds, and then you have the raised bread loaf underneath it, so it would be shepherded. If that makes sense. I hope that was the question.
Yeah, I believe that's the question. Yeah. So the confusion, he's correct in the F4, the front part of the lion being hot. but the seated person is shepes. Shepes. And so we have a raised bread loaf here, so it's shepes et. Shepeset, but most people pronounce it as shep sut. They just pronounce it that way. But it's shepes et. Shepeset. Hat shepeset. But most people pronounce it hat shep sut. All right. So this is one word, shepes, and then with a feminine ending of the T, shepeset. But most people don't pronounce it that way. The same thing happens with queen. As I said, queen. Let me show you this picture that I showed before. This particular person here. Within the Shinu on this particular picture, and it's the Hemet Nasut, so she's the queen. But most people pronounce this person's name as Nefertari. Nefertari. They just say Nefertari. But if you look at the Shinu and see her name is actually Neferet Iri. Neferet Iri. But when most, we're accustomed just saying it fast and a little slightly different pronunciation, Nefertari. Nefertari. Like Nefa and then Tari. But it's actually Neferet Iri. One word, Neferet. Another word, Iri. Neferet Iri. Neferet Iri Meret Nimut. That's the name that you see inside the Shinu. So we just have to be a little bit flexible in understanding that these pronunciations are purely conventional, and it's just something we've accustomed to pronouncing certain names that way. All right, so just keep that in mind. Like for example, even Mentu Hotep. Most people will say Mentu Hotep, but it's actually Menchu Hotep with the ch sound there. Similar to how people will say netter as opposed to netcher. There's different ways that people may pronounce things. But anyway, so I just wanted to make sure I added that on to make sure that was clear. So that was Kevin, and I'm scrolling down. Yeah, that's it. I guess we're at the bottom. So he said dua, so hopefully that was clear. Understood. Okay, I do want to say
yes, and oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was saying in regards to that, Saint-Jean says we have to keep in mind that speech is tentative. So the pronunciation, those are tentative. Because I know some people, make the claim that it was never pronounced this way, so we don't know what it means. Or some people might actually say that it was never meant to be read. Some people, it was supposed to be read in a different state, all that kind of stuff. So.
Oh yeah, I mean, we have a lot of different claims, and it goes back to what I recommend. Anyone who is talking about Kemet, especially in a position of influence. Of course, if you're studying on your own, no one has to be an expert. You don't have to get a degree in Egyptology or anything of that nature. But if you're going to put yourself before people, a body of people, and teach or lecture or present or be in any influential position over other people, then you yourself should, at the very least, be competent and proficient at a basic level of the language. There's no way around that. Otherwise, you're gonna actually do a disservice to the people that you are trying to share information with. All right. And you yourself will be handicapped. And we see this happening with a lot of misinformation out there. I saw a post made by someone saying that the language was not even spoken, that it was only to be used in a dream state. And that's utterly nonsense. That's crazy. Because you have decrees, you have phrases called Jed Medu in words spoken. It didn't say words dreamt. It says words spoken. Jed Medu in words spoken by, or Jed Medu, words said, words spoken. Okay. Ra'u niyu peret imheru, utterances. These are utterances. Ra'u, utterances. Niyu of peret Emykhet for the coming forth by day. This is what people know as the Book of the Dead. These are utterances to be said. Okay? Jed, to say. Ra, to speak. Even the name of the language, Ra Ni Kemet. It means to speak, the spoken language of Kemet. Ra, which is literally the mouth, the word for mouth. It's what comes out of the mouth. As a matter of fact, the people who were in charge, the overseers, the people who were the boss of different agencies or different crews or groups of people were called Emi-Ra, which means Emi, which is that which is within Ra, the mouth. And so what is in the mouth? It is your command. And so Emi-Ra is the word that means overseer or commander, someone who is in charge. Emi-Ra. Okay, and then some, that may tie into the word as Amir, which is somebody who is in charge. So keep all of that in mind. So we can't allow, the misinformation. Once it's recognized, we need to clarify things. And so when you see things like that, make sure you become responsible. Take on the responsibility to also share and clarify the information, and do it respectfully, and then we should have no problem. All right. So I guess that would be our conclude. But I want to say Hotep again to all those who have tuned in, and we'll be doing more of these videos. And if you have a recommendation of a topic that you would like for us to cover, myself, Sonnet Emykhet, any of the members of the Sesh Medew Netcher, just join our Facebook group if you're not already a member. But post it, inbox. You can inbox or post it in our Facebook group. Bring up a topic, bring up a subject matter that you would like for us to talk about and build on. Of course, please let it be related to Kemet, the language, and any periphery stuff, but let it at least tie into the language, because that's what we're for as far as the Sesh Medew Netcher. Okay, so just keep that in mind. But so that's all I have. And Sonnet Emykhet, if you have anything else, you can I guess close out our live stream.
No, I think we covered a lot. Leave it at that, and just a quick reminder that you can go through the on the seshmedewntr.com page. You can go through the translations, and this one as well that we've gone over. You can find it over there. And just to thank everyone for tuning in. There was no warning and all that, but we appreciate that. And there's a lot of you who came in to watch. So dua. And I'll just close out by saying get an affair or back an affair if you're in the morning time. And Shema Motive.